Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Trauma Thursday. I'm so excited to see all of you. I usually give about 45 seconds or so for people to join. I'm going to be joined tonight by the incomparable Mr. Michael Jones, who will be sharing with us about the upcoming release of his new film. And I spoke with him and the cast a few weeks ago, but we'll be diving into some issues about trauma and about the mental implications of trauma and some other things. Again, I'm Adrienne Mayfield. This is Tackling Trauma Thursday. You can find out more about me on my website, which is going along the ticker at the bottom. If you're watching this from YouTube, please subscribe and share. Now's the time to share this with your friends. Like, subscribe, and share. Turn on the notification bell and notify your friends that we are on. I'll be bringing him on in just a second. Again, this is the time for you to share with your friends. Remind them if they did not get the 46 notifications that I sent out that we are on live. Again, I am talking with Mr. Michael Jones today. We'll be talking about his film. We'll be talking about some of the relationships between mental conditioning and trauma and how that all works. So it's going to be a really exciting and interesting conversation tonight. You want to be a part of it. Just a reminder, if you have any questions or comments that you want to be addressed or discussed, make sure that you put those in the comment section. And as we're going along and I'm asking him questions, I will be sure to get your comments shared and get your questions answered. So this is Tackling Trauma Thursdays. We're discussing different issues related to trauma. If you have a traumatic experience that you've overcome that you would not mind sharing and that you want to share with the world, reach out to me on social media, or you can go into my website at adriennemayfield.com and leave me a note and let me know what you want to talk about, and I will give you a call or email you, and we'll collaborate and get it going. It's really not as difficult as it looks. Just takes a little courage to come in front of people and not know if people are going to be receptive or not. But it doesn't matter because we all have something to say. And so even if one person comes on and they're blessed by what you have to say, you've done your job. So again, I'm Adrienne Mayfield. This is the Tackling Trauma series. We do this every Thursday at 8 o'clock. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And I'll be bringing Mr. Jones on in just a second. I need to grab my notes off of the printer, so give me 10 seconds. That was probably less than 10, right? So let's go ahead and bring him on since I have the notes. I see that some people are logging in, so let's go ahead and add Mr. Jones to the stream. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you again. I know you're excited. You had a lot of activity around the release of your new film, and so before we jump into conversation about that, I want you to let the audience know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Michael Jones. I have a couple of hats. I'm an architect. I was a college professor. I teach elementary school now. I've been writing and producing gospel stage plays. I've toured the Southeast since 2002. I'm an author. My book is called $1 at a Time, which is about economic empowerment in the Black community. And I turned my book into my first play called Never Again, which was about the mental conditioning of slavery. As a grandmother explains conditioning to her grandson. And we toured from 2002 to 2004. Second play, 40 Acres, Who Stole the Mule? We toured with 2006 to 2009. And my third play was called When God Calls, Will You Answer? About finding your calling in life. And we toured from 2011 into 2018. And 2020 came, and you know what happened. So touring stage plays kind of slowed down. So now I'm a filmmaker, and my movie, Never Again, I brought back. So it's a 20-year anniversary of Never Again. It'll be released Juneteenth of 2022 that started in 2002. Okay.
Wow. So this is 20 years since you released it. So what inspires you to write the play?
Well, the play came from the book. I published the book $1 at a Time, like I said, in 2000. And it was based on simple question: can all African Americans come together $1 at a time and redirect it back into the Black community, $1 at a time, and give it to an organization helping children? Something I thought, I was in Atlanta, at the HBCU, and thinking that this can be achieved. And all throughout year in 1996, I attempted that movement. And at the end of the year, raised a little over $4,000 for the whole year. So interesting year. But
yeah.
and I did a book tour from 2000, 2001. And someone said, you know what? I like your book, but have you ever thought about writing a play? Because Black folks don't read.
Uh-oh.
I didn't want to hear that. But I
Right.
took them up on it, and I turned my book into my first play called Never Again.
Okay. And so tell us, what was the success like for the Never Again, the play? Where'd you tour? Where'd you tour? What different
Well,
cities did you tour in, or was
like
it
I
just
said,
one
we
tour?
when I first came to Augusta in 2002, we opened up in the Imperial Theater, 850 seats, and sold out my very first show. I was
Oh
a high
wow.
I've been
Okay.
chasing. I was in a high I've been chasing ever since. And we toured for 2 years. We did Waynesboro, Georgia, Athens, Georgia, Sumter, South Carolina, Hartsville, South Carolina, um, Orangeburg, Sumter, Hartsville, Warner Robins, Georgia, many cities, Fort Gordon, Georgia. So we did a lot of the smaller markets because that was my first play. And then we kept going from there.
So the first show sold out at the Imperial Theater, almost 1,000 seats. That's pretty
Yeah,
impressive, Michael.
I was.
I don't think I knew
Uh,
that.
I mean, and I got to give it to him. The city of Augusta came to support, and it was the biggest opening I've done since. I had 55 choir members on stage, Faith Outreach, Faith Outreach Christian Life Center, mass choir. So when the curtains rose up, you saw a sea of red choir robes. I mean, and it was a big opening. And we had the cut no dancers performing praise dance, and we had a live band. So it was a large opening for the start of the play, and the audience was on their feet for the very beginning when the actors came out. And it was just, the feedback from the audience was just tremendous. We had so much support. I hustled and we sold some tickets, and the actors sold tickets, and we had the fire marshal come in there at one point getting people up because they were sitting on the floor and on the carpet in between the seats. It was an incredible show, my very first show ever.
Wow, that's impressive for a first show, and I mean
Yeah,
it says a lot about even the theme and the emphasis of your play and books are about the African American community coming together and unifying. So the fact that
yeah.
you came, are you from Augusta?
Well, no, I'm a
You're
military
from Augusta?
kid. Military kid.
Okay.
Father was military, so 14 states and 4 countries. Traveled,
Wow.
went to college in Atlanta, and kind of grew up in
Okay.
Atlanta, Morris Brown and
Okay.
Southern Tech. And so that's kind of where home is. And came back to Augusta to help take care of my mom. And I'm here, and I wanted to tour. So that's what, because I had to get out of the city and go to other places. I'm a
Right.
traveler. So that's what,
Mhm.
touring was ideal for.
And so I heard you mention architect. So you are an architect. That's what you did at Southern Tech.
Yes, I graduated in '92, architecture, and I had an architectural firm, small residential, doing decks, and I did a church, and I worked with an architectural firm to do the Metro YDC in Atlanta. So did some bigger projects and some smaller things, branched out on my own, and that was before computers were really taking over. So got into computer design because we did everything on the board at that time. And then computers, AutoCAD, Architect, Studio, things like that came out. So you can animate, you can design a floor plan, build it up, and switch it around and show, what it looks like with the garage on the front side, the other side. So homeowners were really liking that, and I was really getting into computers.
I don't think I've ever met an architect in person in real life. So
Oh
this is
well,
my first time ever
hello.
meeting an architect. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we talked about the architecture, and now you are an elementary school teacher. What grade?
Yeah. Well, fifth grade. So um,
Fifth
I'm
grade.
out.
Okay.
I'm out now. I took a hiatus to, due to COVID and to film this movie. So
Uh-huh.
I miss the kids, and I'll be back next year when the movie's out.
I miss the kids too. I actually was a high school teacher and assistant principal for 11 years before I made the decision
Cool.
to practice law. I was 37
Okay.
when I went to law school, and so I tell people all the time, I really miss the students. That's like the biggest thing. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was a teacher, they used to frustrate me at times, but now I really miss them because my students are doing amazing things now. I have some who are pastors, business owners, moms. I mean, I have professors. I have
Mhm.
students who are doing all kinds of amazing things. There's one
Yeah.
who has started like an organization, travels to Africa. So it's just a lot of interesting things. Some are pastors. It's just I say that I think, but a lot of them are doing really great things. And so to invest into a young person's life and then see it come to fruition is one of the most rewarding things ever.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
let's jump. Let's do so. We talk. This is Thursday, tackling traumas. I want to go ahead and remind people again. Every Thursday at 8 o'clock, we take a issue, a traumatic. We discuss a traumatic issue, something that causes trauma, and we have a guest to come on and share their personal stories of overcoming trauma. So if that is something that you are interested in sharing, if you've
Yes.
overcome some form of trauma, I have a list of over 20 different things. So if anyone is watching now and you have a topic that you'd like to talk about, reach out to me, leave it in the comments, reach out to me on direct message, go on my website, adriennemayfield.com, and leave me a note so that we can hook up and you can come on here and share your stories. I think this is the fourth week that we've done this. We've had some really exciting guests to come on. Now is the time for you to share this with your friends. We're about to jump into the conversation with Michael and talk a little bit more about conditioning and trauma and the effects of slavery, which is what the subject of his upcoming film is going to be about. And so now's a great time to share with your friends. Let them know that we're on. Also, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. All right, let's jump into the conversation. So, as
Okay.
far as you said you wrote the book "Never Again" first, right? Or
Well,
$1 at a time
one
was that
dollar
the
at a
title? Or
time.
tell me again.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah. $1 at a
Okay,
time is the
and
book.
that okay. There's the book, guys. How can people get that book?
Repeat that again.
How do people get a copy of the book?
Oh, they can go on our Facebook page, $1 at a time Productions, and they can order it
Uh huh.
from the marketplace from there, just like you would do Amazon, but you go on Facebook, or you can go to my YouTube page, YouTube channel called $1 at a
Mm-hmm.
time Productions also, and you can see some trailers of the movie, um, or you can go to my website, which is When God Calls Play 99.com, and you can read several reviews of the book on our website, or they can just give me a call, 706-294-1152.
706-294-15.
1152, 1152.
Okay, all right. So there's the phone number, there's the website, the YouTube, and the Facebook. If you want to reach out to Michael and get more information about his book or the things that he is doing. So let's talk about trauma
Yeah.
and slavery. I know that you had a trailer that when you and the cast were on before, we showed the trailer a couple of times, and people were like, "Oh, this looks really good," and I was like, "I can't wait to see it. Like this looks really it's riveting." And I know you have a new updated trailer. Is that correct? That you have
Yeah.
on your social media now, right? A longer
Yes.
trailer, extended trailer to give people more taste of what the film is going to be about.
Yeah.
So you said that you wrote the book. and you then now decided to turn it into a stage play at the insistence of people that say, "Hey, make it a stage play." So, what
Yeah.
do you see as being the biggest obstacle or the big carryover from slavery with African Americans? What do you think is something that we just have not been able to shape?
Well, I've been talking about that a lot, about conditioning. And conditioning is something you can't really see until it manifests itself. We've been conditioned from light skin, dark skin, long hair, short hair, all the issues that divide us. And we've been divided for many years. And it came from the slave plantation. Light skinned slave was able to go in the house, cornbread, nice bed. Dark skinned slave had to work in the field. So that was a systematic way to divide them. Then you take the light skin and say, go outside and let me know if they're going to run away. And if you do, you can come back in the house and you can have a nice bed to sleep in. So now you got the light skin basically doing what he has to do to survive, and he's telling on the dark skin. Now what you do is you have the dark skin hating the light skin because of the situation. And throughout time, fast forward 1930s, we even had the brown bag test. And we
Mm-hmm.
talk about that in the movie, where we discriminated against each other. We held a brown paper
What
bag
is
up to
that?
your face.
But, mm-hmm.
And if you're darker than a brown paper bag, you can't come into a club that we owned. So we use that a form of discrimination against each other. Then fast forward to
Mm-hmm.
1960s, it was black, go to the back, white is all right. So those
Mm-hmm.
things have been used as a form of systemic discrimination and conditioning. If you condition the mind of a person, you will condition their actions. And
Mm-hmm.
and I even talk about Willie Lynch in the movie and in my book about the way masters were taught to condition the slaves. You do these things for 1 year, it will become self-refueling and self-generating in them for 400 years. This person was
Mm-hmm.
reported to saying this in 1712. And you fast forward,
1712.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've been talking about this. You can go online and you can type in Willie Lynch and you'll see the whole information. And whether it was created in a two in this year or whatever, or way back then, it justifies how we relate to one another. And if we can understand how you've been conditioned, first
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that you're conditioned, then you can break the
Mm-hmm.
conditioning. If you don't acknowledge it, you'll never break it. And conditioning is
Right.
like being an alcoholic. You can't just say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you're conditioned by alcohol. Just put down the bottle and you're done." You have to
No.
find the root causes that created you to seek a substance like alcohol or drugs. And once you uncover the reasons why, then you can be on the road to recovery. We're
Mm-hmm.
conditioned. I mean, it's so many ways. You can be conditioned from molestation long time ago in your life. You can
Mm-hmm.
say that person, oh, just forget about it. That was 20 years ago. If you haven't dealt with the reasons and acknowledged it and grieved
Mm-hmm.
through it, you're still going to be conditioned today. And it's going to be manifested in your relationships and how you relate to other
Mm-hmm.
people because you haven't dealt with the root causes of the
Right.
conditioning. We as
Right.
African American people on this in the throughout the diaspora, from the continent, from the slave trade, from the early 1400s, 1500s, 1600s into America, we have been conditioned systematically for a reason to be a
Mm-hmm.
product to yield results for certain people, for cotton, for gin, for tobacco, for them to make billions of dollars
Mm-hmm.
at free labor. So
Mm-hmm.
we've been conditioned, and a lot of people are still okay with that because they
Mm-hmm.
haven't dealt with the reasons. And you see it manifest itself. You see people from hair color to light skin, dark skin, all the
Mm-hmm.
issues in our community.
Mm-hmm.
We need to address
Yeah.
our causes first then we can love
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. I mean the color. I was doing a little research on some different issues before, just in preparation for our live tonight, and I was just
Hmm.
thinking about the colorism, as you said, but then there's also the texturism. And I know, like on with the with the hair, with good hair versus bad hair, and
Yeah.
with trying to get really silky straight hair and all this. And I know, like on Saturday, I went to the Dominican hairstylist because I was going to get my hair straightened. And when I went in there, there was literally this smoke. It was smoke. Like it was so smoky in there from all these blow dryers where people just burning. I call it burning their hair. They don't say they're burning their hair, but just all this brown brushing they're doing with these hot blow dryers, just trying to get their hair straight. And so,
Hmm.
we have this colorism, we have texturism, we have all of this internal things that happen. But as you just said, a lot of the internal fighting, a lot of the crabs in a barrel, a lot of this not wanting people to excel and being afraid people are going to excel more than you and tearing them down comes from this belief that's been taught about hating ourselves. It comes from an internal
Yeah.
hatred that now begins to make us display that against one another.
Yeah. And it's so deep within the Black community. It spans so many areas in the workforce. You can be a Black supervisor and say, well, this is the way we need to do this process to a Black employee. And the Black employee is looking at you
Mm-hmm.
like, who taught you that? Then the white employee comes in and says, this is how we're going to do it. Oh, okay. Right then and there, you saw how it manifests
Mm-hmm.
itself. And even the
Right.
words we use, blackout,
Mm-hmm.
blackball, black hole, any two words you put together, black being one and another word next to it, is negative by connotation. And if you use those words subliminally, you will internalize negativity. Black for a funeral, white for a wedding. And if you call yourself Black and everything you know, Black being negative, subliminally you will consider yourself as a negative. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of the smaller things, and even if, and I remember when grandmas used to say, you're male and you're Black, so you have two strikes against you, and
Mm-hmm.
that's negative, you know, and
Yeah.
only in you two negatives are not going to make a positive.
Mm-hmm.
So only in math you can get that, but if
Yeah.
you're giving a child negativity, thinking that, and we
Mm-hmm.
do know that it is, you need to work harder. I mean, that's the reality. But
Yeah.
if you're indoctrinated as an early age of being told that you got to run faster, you got to be smarter, you got to be than this other person, now
Mm-hmm.
you're like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
And you're starting to believe there's something inherently wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to act out, and you see how it acts out in school. And I'm pretty sure you've dealt with it in the school system. We see it on a daily basis, how
Mm-hmm.
it can change a child's mentality and how they can grow, being taught that they're not as good as someone else.
Yeah. And I was going to ask that. So, I mean, because I remember when right before I left the field of education, I taught, I guess the first 10 years of my educational career, I was surrounded by majority women. Most schools would have one or two males, and they were the ones that everybody
Yeah.
looked to break up their fights and that kind of thing. But when I taught the next to last year I actually taught at a school that was like it was in an inaugural year. We had at a high school, we had 33 African American men working at that high school, Middle Grove High School in DeKalb, and that was unprecedented. Like that didn't exist anywhere else, and it was just a powerful thing to see and experience for the young men there. And we did an experimental thing there where we did gender-based classes. So the males taught males and females taught females. They did like a test case with that with the female with one English class, and so it really really worked well. And
Hmm.
so I just remember that, and I wanted to ask you, what are you observing like in education as far as fifth grade? Because fifth grade is really like one of those telltale years. They're not really
Yeah.
babies anymore, but they're not quite adults, and they're getting ready to transition to middle school. So what do you see happening there as far as conditioning and disciplinary records and actions and punishments and those kind of things with African American males?
Well, I don't have a, well, I would say I would have more problems with females. Um,
Hmm.
one, I mean, a lot of them were angry, and
Yes.
and it was a lot of, you see one person coming in one day and their hair is down here, and the next day their hair is down, you know, and then the attitude and the mentality. I dealt with really good with the boys because I can look at them and put them in their position, but some of the girls, it's a little different,
Hmm.
so I'll just leave it at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, it's just I know that a lot of times and they've talked about it. They've done studies on it for years about how how children are kind of placed in a category from a very young age, and it's very difficult for them to overcome it because these records follow. So, like,
Yeah,
let's say
yeah,
a kid is in the second grade and they steal a cupcake or steal something from the lunchroom, or even smack a kid or get into a tussle or fight on the playground. This goes
hmm
into their disciplinary record, and this
yes, it does.
disciplinary record follows them throughout their entire educational career. And I think a lot of times people don't talk about that.
Yeah,
And so it's
yeah,
good to have these types of conversations, amongst Black people, because sometimes we get angry and we say, "Oh, white people this, white people that." But I know just for myself, there's some very serious conversations that we need to begin to have. When Bill Cosby came out, years ago, and he was having the conversations about the pants being down and all of the issues that we were having in the Black community. People were like, "Oh, how dare he say this? He's just the Jello pudding pop guy." And and then when the thing came out with the issue with the women, and people like, "Yeah," and all that time he was talking about us and our kids.
hmm
But I think it is high time that we have some very, very pointed and very honest conversations about what's going on in our communities, because we do have the brokenness, we do have the poverty, we do have the high crime levels, we do have health issues with the
yeah,
diabetes and the healthcare. In 2020 when Corona hit, it was all of this, pre-existing conditions, and then people with pre-existing conditions, a lot of times they were hitting African Americans and people of color. The disease was hitting those people harder because of those pre-existing conditions. And so these are all things that we've got to start talking about, though. Like, we got to start talking about exercise. We got to start talking about diet. We got to start talking about, why is your child 13 and they're out at 12 o'clock? Why are the police picking your child up to bring them home and it's 1 o'clock in the morning? Like, why is this happening? Why is there an issue of the child stealing the Doritos that I saw on the news the other day? And they're like, you could just let, they were telling the police, you could have just let him pay for the Doritos. I'll pay for the Doritos.
yeah,
We got to stop doing that. I mean, I don't think that a policeman should be abrasive or abrupt or slam a kid off of a bike onto the ground. But I also think that if we give hand slaps for stealing, that stuff continues to grow. It grows up in people. And so
hmm
then those same people are the people that are carjacking you at the grocery store and carjacking you at the gas station. And then it's like, oh, it's an issue now. But we have to begin to have honest conversations about some of these things in our community. And I think we are or by and large, are very traumatized people, just from the results of the residual effects of slavery. But I think
yeah,
we also have to have conversations about, what are we going to do? Okay, these things happened. They were wrong. They shouldn't have happened. It's affected us in negative ways. But what are we going to do now? Are we going to continue to
yeah,
use this as a crutch, as a reason why we can't move forward? Or are we going to pick ourselves up and say, hey, people hate that expression, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. But what are we going to do? I mean, because we got to do
yeah.
something. We can't just keep
Well,
blaming other people. Go
well,
ahead.
I actually spoke about that a couple of times, which is, what do we do now? Yeah, we understand we're
Right.
conditioned, we understand all the issues, but how can we get over that? And that's where I wrote the stage play, When God Calls, Will You Answer? And then
Mm-hmm.
I started talking about stress. And stress, there are two forms of stress, of course. You have short term stress and long term stress. A lot of us
Uh-huh.
are stressed. over a lot of reasons. And if
Yeah.
we can understand how to relieve ourselves from stress, we're going to have stress. Short-term stress is we were given that early on. Your muscles get big, your hormones get big, and you can run away from the dinosaur. That was then.
Mm-hmm.
Now we in our community, we're stressed every day over and over and over again. And that stress dumps cortisone and hormones into your body that creates high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis,
Mm-hmm.
all of the mental, the physical conditions, and heart attacks and obesity
Mm-hmm.
and all those things, comfort foods, eating because you're stressed about the bills, you're stressed about kids, you're stressed about job, you're stressed about home life, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
All those things can be relieved once you find your calling in life.
Yeah.
And that's what I really stress about. Once you find out what you love to do in life, you
Mm-hmm.
don't get as much stress in your life as you would normally get because you love, whether it's picking up trash, whether it's um, working at the neighborhood grocery store, being architect, engineer, doctor, whatever it is, follow your calling in life. And when we did that
Yeah.
play, we toured from 2011 to 2018. So we did many cities. And almost every time when I come out in the lobby, people would say, well, you know what? I saw the play and I see what you're talking about, finding your calling. And I always wanted to write a book. I'm like, well, let me
Mm-hmm.
show you how. Because
Yeah.
if you don't follow your passion that God has placed in your heart
Mm-hmm.
today, it will become the regret tomorrow. And that regret
Yeah.
will eat you alive. And I talk
Yeah.
about stress will kill you quicker than a bullet. Once you can get
Yeah.
rid of stress
Yes.
and you can
Yes.
get rid of, you love life. And people ask me all the time, what do I do for fun? Everything, because I love doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a stress to get up in the morning. I mean, because I'm ready to go. I love doing what I'm doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of things, yes, but I love doing it, and I keep myself busy
Mm-hmm.
because it's not work. It's fun. Once you can do that, you live longer. Your life expectancy is better. Your health is better. You don't sit around and eat all day. You don't drink. You don't smoke. You get rid of all those things. And sometimes, and when I'm giving a speech about stress, sometimes I say you have to also get rid of some people out of your life
Oh
that
yeah.
are
Yes.
stressing. People can
Yes.
stress you into an early grave.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
family can stress you into an early grave. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but some people, you can be married to the wrong person. Every time you come in, where you been? Better get my food ready. You don't want that stress after having a long day at work. And now your high blood pressure is up, you're stressed again, cortisone hormones are dumping into your body again. They're
Mm-hmm.
eating away the lining of your intestines, your pancreas. They're physically damaging the internal organs of your body. Then
Right.
you find out, oh, now I got to go to the hospital because now I've got an ulcer. It's because
Right.
of your
Yeah.
man. It's
Right.
because of your job.
Right.
You go to work and your job says you late 5 minutes again, one more time, you're fired. Now, how's he going to get 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
good of work out of you? Now you're upset. Now you're pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to start
Mm-hmm.
working. I mean, you're already upset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you got to calm down. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't love it, you're going to go to the bathroom, you're going to start smoking. You're going to go to the bar to get a drink to calm your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
messing with again. So
Yeah.
find your calling, love doing what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, then
Mm-hmm.
get rid of stress, live a better,
Yeah.
healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's the reason. Once we
Mm-hmm.
can do that, you'll love life just like I love life. I love doing what I do.
Yeah. That's huge. And I think, I mean, part of that mental conditioning comes from, like, I see it all the time with women that I work with who've been abused. This
Mhm.
psychology around abuse and abuse being acceptable, and so people they accept it in their relationships, they accept it at their jobs, they accept it from their families. All of this abuse, all of these toxic relationships and environment, and then sometimes it even happens in church. Those same people will end up going to church where they experience spiritual abuse, where they're
Yeah.
used for their gifts, or they're lambasted, or they're told if they leave the church they're gonna die, and all this kind of stuff. And people get attracted to that kind of thing just because of this mental conditioning. And so we've got
Yeah.
to begin to change the narrative around what is healthy. What does healthy look like? If someone slaps you against the wall and then tells you they love you, they don't really love you, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to begin to change all those kinds of all the conversations that we're having to really truly be able to even find the destiny and calling. And to your point about your book, and calling and purpose, I tell people all the time, as I'm an African American woman, but I'm a believer in Christ first. And
Mhm.
once I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, and I got adopted into the family of God, then all of the things that I even subconsciously felt about myself being black and being from a predominantly white town, those things started to slowly go away. And I still deal with them now. I still pray about them all the time because I moved to Forsyth County, which is not particularly known for its diversity, right?
Yeah.
And so I still pray a lot about those kinds of things, but I have to remember that ultimately my identity is rooted and founded in who God calls me to be and who He says I am. And because of that, I have the ability and I have the tenacity and strength to go after my purpose and know that He's for me. And so it doesn't matter. Like all the things, the racism, the discrimination, people trying to stop me. If God be for me, who can be against me? And so that's an important conversation for people to have, is to understand that in Christ there's no male nor female, right? No Jew, no Gentile. So God makes us, gives us, empowers us to do what He called us to do. And so when we tap into that, we're able to go after that purpose. We're able to go after our passion, and we're able to be all that He called us to be.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and a lot of it stems in knowing who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us don't, and that's where never again came from the we once you know who you are in Christ and who you believe, we were kings and queens. And if you really believe that you're a king and queen, you wouldn't act the way you act now.
Right. Yeah.
And we see so many people walking, like you said, walking around with their pants down. How can a king
Mhm.
do that? How can a
Yeah.
queen allow people to abuse her and be slapped
Right.
and say, well, he bought me some flowers and some candy, so he loves me? He didn't really mean that. Not a queen,
Mhm.
not a real queen.
Right. Right.
So if we really believed that we were kings and queens, and we can, I mean, our history tells us and shows us, but a lot of us don't want to look back at our history. And a lot of
Right.
us look back at slavery, and that's the beginning of us. That wasn't the beginning of us.
No, it
We
wasn't.
were, I mean, Ramses, Tutankhamun, Akhenaton, Hannibal. And Hannibal was not a person who ate people in that movie. But a lot of people see Hannibal. No, Hannibal was a military genius. But
Mhm.
we don't know our own history and who we were. If we only knew, we would do
Mhm.
better.
Yeah, we would. Yeah, I mean, the whole self-esteem piece is huge in that, and identity and understanding who you are. Understand that's what I was saying. Understanding who God has called you to be and who you are. I mean, who you are and whose you are. You belong to God. God is the ruler of the universe. He's the sovereign creator of all things, and you're created in His image. We are all created in the image of God, and so His potential, His living, breathing potential, and life-giving essence is inside of us, and we have the ability to do all that God called us to do. And so
Yeah.
understanding that, things happen, things can be tough. You may not know who your parents are. You may have been abused. You may have been molested. You may have been raped. You may have been homeless. I mean, people go through things. Life is not always a bowl of cherries as far as, is it a bowl of cherries? Is that what Forrest Gump said?
I think so.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we life has challenges, but God has called us to tap into what Jesus did for us, and He said, "Take peace. I've overcome. In this world, you have tribulation, but take peace. I've overcome the world." And so once we
Definitely.
begin to tap into that, we can tap into who we are, we can tap into the identity that God has for us, and we can begin to shed some of these labels of impoverished, shed some of these labels of black as bad, shed some of these labels of negativity, and we can begin to walk in the light and the call and purpose that God gave us. And I mean that's huge because if you people a lot of stuff that people accept and do comes from the fact that they have low self-esteem. They
Yes.
don't know who they are, and so they're acting out of this lack of knowledge and this ignorance to who they really are and who they belong to.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, if you don't know who you are, you'll accept anyone's opinion of you. And
Mm-hmm.
we've done that so many times throughout the centuries. We've accepted
Mm-hmm.
that, we were this type of person. We were this type of person. We need to know who we were and embrace our past. Only embracing your past will you have a better future for your
Right.
children. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and now in America, we've got this critical race theory and all kinds of things that are going throughout the school systems they're trying to erase who we were. And even
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in school, if you bring it up, you can get sued, put in jail for any of those things based on oh, you can get put in jail, anything based on someone, you know, telling on you because you're teaching history.
Right.
And these
That's right.
things, you know, we gotta stand up for because we can't allow
Yeah.
their history to be our history.
Yeah, you gotta know where you came from, and you have to know the richness of it so that you can understand that you have potential inside of you. So guys, this is a good time. We're only gonna be on here for probably 5 or 10 more minutes at the most. This is the time to remind you this is Tackling Trauma Thursdays. We are talking with the superstar, Mr. Michael Jones, creator of $1 at a Time Productions. He will be releasing well, not really, I guess releasing for the second time his film on Juneteenth. And so we're going
Juneteenth,
to talk a little bit
yes.
about that. Now is an opportunity for you to invite your friends to come on for the last 5 or 10 minutes. Like the page if you have not subscribed. I have Michael's information here so that you can reach out to him. Also, I'm going to be looking over here for your questions. If you have questions or something that you want to ask Michael as we get ready to close out, go ahead and add those. And then I'll be looking over here. Let's see comments. People say this is so true. Stress can take a toll on you. This is very informative. This is helping me. People need mental restoration and conditioning before they can accept who they are. A lot of damage has been done. That's
Yeah.
true. Let's see. Chantel says, I wholeheartedly agree. If you don't know who you are, you will accept a lie. That's so true. Okay, so Michael, tell people again about just a little overview for people who come in later, what the film is about and where they can find it on Juneteenth.
Okay. The film is called Never Again, which is about the grandmother explaining the mental conditioning of slavery to her grandson. And you see what she's explaining from slavery to Negro Baseball League, Vietnam, throughout the timeline of history. So it's real dramatic and it's heartfelt. It's something that we all should share with our families, our kids, something that we need to pass on as a generation. And it will be released Juneteenth. Will be online. We've got Vimeo, so you can go on TV. That's Vimeo. That will be an online
Mhm.
streaming platform. And Black House Channel is another channel that's setting up right now. You can go to our
Is
YouTube
that is
channel.
that an app? Is that an
Um,
app? The Black
Well,
House
it's
Channel?
it's it's a website, and they're getting the website set up that will incorporate several programs underneath it. But just go
Okay.
to our YouTube channel, and all of that information will be available. $1 at a time productions on our YouTube channel, and please subscribe. so we can keep in touch with you and give more feedback. And you can see the trailer of the movie. Like I said, it's our 20th year anniversary of Never Again that we launched in 2002. And we're excited to share this with the world. Um, we've had some interesting moments on Facebook when we rolled
Yeah.
out our trailer, and
Hmm.
it's comments are still coming.
Yeah. I saw some of those comments and some, I was mortified by some of them, just the vitriol that was being shared there and levied at
Yeah.
you and about the whole issue of revisiting this, we're tired of this, we don't want to talk about it, those kinds of things. I don't understand. But then, today I was thinking, and I'm gonna let you, share whatever you want to say about that. But I was thinking about, I was asking, talking to my brother, and I said, if you had, if you knew that someone close to you had done something really horrible, but you had absolutely nothing to do with it, but people wanted to talk about it all the time, and you knew or agreed that it was horrible, would you feel comfortable or invite the conversation to be repeated all the time? And so I just kind of tried to think, I thought about it today. It came to me from a different perspective, because this issue of race and slavery and discrimination and the way that the slaves were treated is a horrible issue. It's a terrible thing. And we need to have conversations about it. But at the same time, on the other side of that, how do you feel if you do something wrong and someone keeps bringing it up, or you do something wrong and people keep reminding you and you may not have even been
Mhm.
connected to it? And so we have to understand communication is key. Engaging in healthy communication and trying to understand each other is key. Getting to know some people that don't look like you and have some honest conversations. Stop being judgmental on both sides. And let's sit down at the table and have some conversations about how this affected us, how it's still affecting us, and how do we move forward. That's the key, because we don't want to get stuck back in the past. We want to be able to move forward. And I think part of that has to do with being able to sit down and have conversations, not spout hate like the stuff I saw on your Facebook. So what do you want to share about that? And how did you feel? Like, were you expecting, when you released the trailer, were you expecting the level of negativity that came as a result, or what?
Well, I wasn't expecting it at the time, but I understand with the climate we're in now, with
Mhm.
voting rights being taken away, with critical race theory being pushed around, with all of the issues that certain people, because of what a certain president brought up, and that created, it gave license to a lot of people to hate on certain people. I see that more and more, and now we're in this political season we're in now, that it's getting more prevalent, and they're yelling and screaming, but they're not talking and communicating. So
Right.
um, I knew it would come. I didn't know it would come this quick, but some attacks were personal. Um,
Mhm.
some attacks were totally wrong. Um,
Mhm.
you know, slavery didn't just end when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1865, in
Right.
1862. It didn't end then. After that, they came up with Jim Crow, then the
Mhm.
Fugitive Slave Law, then the Black Codes. So it was replaced with other things, and then redlining and redistricting and other things came to replace what slavery was. The paper of slavery was ended. So it
Mhm.
continued way into the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and immune qualified immunity with the cops. A
Mhm.
lot of things have continued on, so it's not gone yet. And a lot of
Right.
us can say, well, since he signed the paper in 1862, we're free now. But it didn't end. We got the Tulsa massacre.
Mhm.
300 plus people died overnight.
Right.
So a lot of things, and every day turn on the TV, another cop shot another Black person. So it continues. We need
I
to
do want to
address.
say though about I do want to say about that though. We put so much emphasis, and I know people probably gonna be sending me some notes in my DM, but we put so much emphasis on these policemen and being killed black when black men are killed by police, but we don't put that level of emphasis when black people kill black.
Oh,
So
I
here in
know, I know.
Atlanta, the security guard who had gotten out of his car and he was shot point blank range in the back of the head. And then young people came and just like pillaged his body. I mean, they were just taking things off of his dying body. I mean, how? I mean, that's just so wrong. But there's not an outcry. You don't see the marches over there. I mean, they had a candlelight vigil and things like that. Obviously, the family, the people in the community, but you don't see the outcry from African Americans about African Americans killing African Americans. And so all murder is wrong, all killing is a sin, it's gonna be judged. But I think that this goes back to what I was saying earlier. As a community, we gotta start having different conversations. There's a lot more black people killing black people than white cops killing black people.
I
And
know, I
people we
know.
don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, and
And
that's
so
that's what I talk about. We have a lot of
have
issues.
that. Yeah,
You
we
know,
gotta start to
we have a lot of issues within
have
the
those
black community.
conversations. Yeah,
Um,
because
you know,
we're those children and the people that were picking those things off of that dying man's body. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's daughter. Those somebody's children. That's somebody's brother. That's somebody. So we have to begin to have different conversations, and I am looking forward to the day when that can happen, where we can stop pointing at other people. They need to come invest. They need to invest. They need to invest. But you don't want to pick up the trash around your community. You don't want to do things that make people want to invest in your community. So it's a lot of conversations that are very uncomfortable, probably that people don't want to have, but we have to have them. Let's see. We have a few comments that say, let's see. How could they not feel bad if they still get privilege from the sufferings of others? If they care, they should want to know more. They should feel compassion, want to know the truth, to relate to abuse people in a respectful way. And the emphasis on white cops killing black people is the fact that the white people don't get arrested. When black people kill each other, they go to jail. It's a difference. There's no justice when white people kill black people unjustly. You never hear black men getting away with killing. They end up in jail. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm an attorney, so I understand, and that's one reason why I didn't want to do criminal law, because when I was in law school, I worked in the public defender's office, and it was so depressing. Every Friday when we did calendar call, all of these black men in orange jumpsuits, and people probably say, well, you should have stayed in the fight. Why didn't you do something? But I'm telling you, it was just every Friday I would go home and I almost want to cry, because I'm like, what in the world? What is this? And so I get it. That black men go to jail, I get it, they're arrested, I get all of that stuff. Yeah. But we gotta have a conversation about all of the black on black crime that we don't put nearly as much emphasis as we do on when a black person is killed by a white person. So I'm not saying either one is right. I'm not saying either one is justified, but I am saying that we gotta start taking responsibility for this stuff so that we can begin to change it. And again, as I said, none of this stuff can just be changed with social programs. I believe the only solution for the world is Jesus Christ. And so loving each other and loving ourselves and loving God, that is what Jesus said is the greatest commandment, right? You gotta love the Lord, gotta love yourself, and love your neighbor as yourself. So we gotta get back to that. And if we get back to that, we can love each other, we can care about each other, and we can start to have some of these conversations that need to be had that will help us heal and begin to move forward. All right, guys, we're going to be closing out now. Let's see. One comment says, knowledge is power. Black people need to know our history so we can do things to change our situation. All right. And so we are here again with Michael Jones, getting ready to close out. I'm going to let him make the final comments. This is Tackling Trauma Thursday. We have talked about and discussed systematic trauma and the result of that trauma from slavery on African Americans, and just the overall trajectory of some things that need to change and happen within the African American community. His new film, well, not new, but re-released film, and this is a 20-year anniversary of it.
Well,
Never
it's a
Again.
new
It's going to be
film.
released on June. It's going to be Juneteenth. It was a stage play, but now it's a film, but it's not totally new because it was a book, then a play, now film.
Yes.
And so that's going to be released on Juneteenth. I have posted on here, you can see in the comments where you can find it on Vimeo, also Black House channel. I invite you to follow $1 at a Time Productions on YouTube. so you can keep up with all of the new information as it's released before Juneteenth gets here, which it'll be May this week, right? So
Yes.
that's only about a month away. I know you're super excited, got a lot of
Yeah.
things going with that. And so I'm going to let you make any closing comments, guys. If you are interested in coming on the show to talk about your story of overcoming trauma, make sure you reach out to me, direct message, or send a comment here and let me know. I'm going to start my website again, going across on the ticker, so that you can reach out to me and let me know if you are want to come on the show. I have a few slots left. I'm only planning on doing this for probably another month or so. I'm going to shift gears and start working on some other things. So if you want to get on here and share your story, of which you should, then reach out to me and we'll get you on here. So I'm going to let you close out, Michael. Say anything that you want to share with the people. Remind them again where they can connect with you, and also
Mhm.
why should they want to see the film.
Okay. Well, I would love for people to leave comments and go to our Facebook group page, which is $1 at a time Productions, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is $1 at a time Productions, and that's ONE, as in one, not the number one, but ONE dollar. Would love for them to keep in touch with what we're doing. Pray for us as we move forward. Never again is something very important to me, because I believe that once we know our power, and our power lies in knowing who we are as African people. Once we know who we are, we can begin to chart a better future for ourselves and for our children, and come together in unity and stop hating on each other from all these different issues that come from being conditioned. And like I tell people a long time, stress will kill you quicker than a bullet. So do whatever you can to find your calling in life, because when God calls, will you answer?
Amen. I like that. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on again. God, we're looking forward, super, super excited for Juneteenth to get here so we can check out the film. And hopefully I might get a sneak peek ahead of everybody else. I don't know, but maybe I'm gonna be hoping for that. And so, guys, again, this is Mr. Michael Jones. You can reach out to him. I have all the information here posted. If you're following on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, click the notification so you can know when we're on. And let's see, Linda says, thank you, Mike, for all you're doing. Community Vibe says, great show. So, guys, thanks again for coming on. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on and being the guest once again. We're excited for you. We're excited for all that you're doing. We thank you for all the contributions that you're making to our community and to empower us and get us thinking about the things and thinking about what we should be thinking about. Guys, trauma can take you out of here. Get help, get therapy, get counsel, and work on those things inside of you that are plaguing you and holding you down. We are here. I'm Adrienne Mayfield, and we enjoyed so much sharing tonight with you. Thanks so much for watching. Share with a friend that you know could benefit from hearing this, and also push this movie, because it's going to be something that's really going to be enriching, educational, and also will be encouraging for us to see Michael succeed as he goes forward with this new work. God bless
Thank
you and
you.
have a good night.
Thank you.